Hello, boys and girls. Thank you for watching my video lesson. Today we are going to stay on the theme of the Supreme Court. So you can see the standard is the same. We're going to analyze the significance of those landmark Supreme Court cases. But before I talk about specific cases, I'm going to go into what the Supreme Court consists of. So the Supreme Court is the highest court in the land, and there are 9 justices. These justices will serve for life. That means they will serve as long as they want until they die or retire. And there's one justice in particular. His name is John Roberts, and he is the Chief Justice. So the Chief Justice will preside over an impeachment trial, which we watched in class together earlier this year. Moving on, the Supreme Court, those justices can serve for life, but it is important to remember that they can be impeached, just like anyone else who serves in our government. So that means they have lifetime tenure if they can maintain good behavior. If they do something that is against the law or goes against the ethics of the Supreme Court, they can be impeached, although this has never happened to a justice on the Supreme Court. Okay, so the Supreme Court will usually take appeals. Over 99% of the time, the Supreme Court will hear an appeal from a lower court. But there are cases where they have what's called original jurisdiction. And that's a case between 2 different states. Like in 1854, Florida and Georgia had a border dispute, and the Supreme Court was able to resolve that dispute in the favor of Florida. Another example would be a Supreme Court case that has to do with an ambassador or a diplomat overseas. So the Supreme Court will hear a case like that first. All right, so moving on. Which cases does the Supreme Court hear? It's usually an appeal. So in the federal court system, there's 3 levels of courts. The district courts is the lowest court, and then it goes to the US Court of Appeals if it can have an appeal. And then usually, or very rarely, I should say, will a case go all the way up to the Supreme Court. All right, moving on. The Supreme Court, if they want to hear a case, they have to file a petition to the lower court requesting all those documents so that they can review a case. But this is very rare, and that's called the writ of cert, or petition for writ of certiorari. But it is very rare, and less than 1% of cases that are appealed to the Supreme Court will actually be heard by the highest court in the land. So most Supreme Court cases deal with cases about different rights and things that have to do with the Constitution. And today we're going to focus on 2 cases in particular that are about First Amendment rights. Before we go into that, I'm going to talk about the most important court case, in my opinion, in our country's history, Marbury versus Madison. The reason I say that, and that's my personal opinion, is because this court case established what's called judicial review. And judicial review gives a very important check on the other branches in our government. So the Supreme Court can actually overturn a law or an executive order. So that's giving a check to the legislative and executive branches. All right, so moving on. Chief Justice John Marshall established this important precedent in our Supreme Court, and he said if a law goes against the Constitution, the Supreme Court can declare it null and void. So that law would no longer be in effect. All right, so the judicial review is a very important, and that's the last time I'm going to say it, but it's a very important check on the other 2 branches in our government. Because remember, checks and balances is what makes our government very special, because we have 3 separate branches that can check each other, and the power does not get too strong in one particular branch. All right, so today I'm going to talk about 2 court cases in particular, and they're both First Amendment court cases. And these court cases are about our First Amendment. Remember those 5 freedoms in the First Amendment, like raps, religion, assembly, petition, the other one with a P, and then speech. It'll come to me later. But these 5 freedoms in the First Amendment are very, very important. And remember, The First Amendment is not just freedom of speech, but it's the freedom of assembly, the freedom to petition, and the freedom to do many other things. Oh, freedom of press. That's the one I forgot. That's a really important one. But anyway, can a school suspend a student for wearing an armband protesting the Vietnam War? Well, that's what happened in 1969 in a town in Iowa called Des Moines. So Tinker vs. Des Moines was all about some students wearing black armbands to school. And it sounds harmless enough, but they were actually suspended because the principal declared that they were being a distraction to the other students. So they actually appealed this case all the way to the Supreme Court. These students were suspended, and they thought they were, just expressing their freedom of speech. Because remember, freedom of speech is not just your spoken words, it is also how you express yourself, how you dress, the clothes that you wear. So they declared that no, it would violate freedom of expression, which is also known as freedom of speech, because students do not shed their rights at the schoolhouse gate. And that's a very important but also famous and well-known quote from the Supreme Court in 1969. So speech is more than just words. All right, the next case I'm going to talk about is Hazlewood versus Kuhlmeier in 1988. So this was about a school-sponsored newspaper that some students wrote, and they were totally in charge of this newspaper. They wrote it, they edited it, but the principal found some articles in there that the principal deemed as inappropriate and removed those articles. So Kathy Kuhlmeier and two other former students at the school brought the case to court, and they did hear this case all the way in the Supreme Court. So did the deletion of these articles violate the students' First Amendment right? No, because school newspapers are sponsored by the school, and articles not directly reflecting the views or the philosophy or the morals of the school can be deleted. So this actually limited First Amendment rights. So I showed you one court case that actually supported the First Amendment, and then another court case that actually limited the First Amendment. All right, so moving on, I'm going to show you the daily attendance question for today. And this is just a made-up scenario that I made up, and I want you to kind of write a 3-sentence answer to it. All right, so a student comes to school with a funny t-shirt with a picture of his favorite cartoon character on it. So every time he enters his classrooms, the students start laughing and they make jokes about the t-shirt because it's so funny and they think it's silly. And students won't stop talking about the shirt during his classes. And every time he wears this shirt, it just causes a big commotion. So the principal says he is not allowed to wear this shirt to school anymore. The student is upset about that, and he argues that this is a violation of his First Amendment rights. So who's right in this case? I'll tell you my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with me. I think this kind of fails the Tinker test. And what do I mean by Tinker test? Well, Tinker vs. Des established a test for schools. So if a student's speech or dress is distracting to the learning of the students, the principal does have the right to stop that person from wearing those certain kinds of clothes. But if it's not determined to be distract to the learning environment, the student should be able to wear it because of his First Amendment rights. So what do you guys think? You guys obviously don't have to agree with me in this scenario, and there's no right or wrong answer. 3 sentences to explain your personal opinion about this topic. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about today is for this week. So I'm going to actually make this due on Thursday by 4 p.m. So please complete the Kahoot quiz. When you take the Kahoot quiz, I know usually when we played Kahoot in class, you would only write your first name, but I want you to write your first and last name so that you can receive 10 bonus points, and that will help me when I'm grading your quiz later. Also, this is going to be due by 4 p.m. on Thursday, not Tuesday. I got to change that on my PowerPoint. So it's going to be due by 4 p.m. on Thursday. All right, please do it on time and not late, because if it's after 4 p.m. on Thursday, it's not going to let you submit it anymore. All right, so maybe you could finish it today or Wednesday or Thursday, but just make sure you finish it before 4 p.m. on Thursday. All right, another thing. When you are finished with the quiz, try to turn it in on Google Classroom. And if you're not sure how to do that, then just take a screenshot of your score and email it to me. That's going to make things much easier for myself when I'm grading. But either turn it in on Google Classroom, and if you're not sure how to do that, just take a picture of your score and email it to me, and then I can put your score right in SIS. So please use the PowerPoints in daily lesson to help you answer the questions, and do not rush, because there's not going to be like a time limit for each question. You could take as much time as you want to finish the questions. All right, so I'm going to tell you the answer to the last question on the Kahoot quiz. It's asking about one of my favorite teams, or my favorite team actually, and it's the Giants. So if you just type in Giants, you're going to get the last question right. So I'm just giving you a freebie right there. And I'm kind of rewarding you for watching the entire video today. All right, so if you guys have any questions about anything, as always, please email me. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed my video lesson. Thank you to those of you who wrote 5 complete sentences today. I'm filming this on a Monday. You're going to see it on a Tuesday. But I put in the scores for your, your first classwork grade of the 4th quarter. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. But most of you did a really nice job writing 5 complete sentences. And remember, we do not copy stuff off of the internet, because that's plagiarism, and that's a very bad thing to do. But thank you for watching my video lesson. I'm going to sign off, and I will see you next time.